Hello, good morning. I'm Peta Alleyne sitting in for Joyanne this morning. Certainly hope that she feels a little better, a little under the weather today. Feel better soon. Joyanne, I'm going to just get right into it, welcoming you, our viewers and our listeners, to Face It and Fix It on CBC TV 8, Facebook and YouTube, and on Q100.7 FM. Now, some thoughts and some observations. First of all, this morning we learned of the passing of Colin Powell, who was the first Black U.S. Secretary of State, under whose leadership in several Republican administrations, American foreign policy was shaped in the last years of the 20th century and the early years of the 21st. And we learned that he had died from complications of COVID-19. And he had been, I think, suffering from myeloma, a form of cancer, but it was managed over the last couple of years. So he was 84. General Powell, former U.S. Secretary of State and chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, passed away this morning. The Powell family informed everyone, noting that he was fully vaccinated. They said that we have lost a remarkable and loving husband, father, grandfather, and a great American. He was a distinguished and trailblazing professional soldier, according to CNN, whose career took him from combat duty in Vietnam to becoming the first Black national security advisor during the end of Ronald Reagan's presidency, and the youngest and first African-American chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff under President George H.W. Bush. And of course, then under George W. Bush, he became the first African-American Secretary of State. Later in his life, Powell, of course, became disillusioned with his party, as we all know, and he really and truthfully was at the forefront of pushing for at the time, Barack Obama, to become the first African-American President of the United States. He's survived by his wife, Alma, and 3 children. May he rest in peace. Notable people within our political sphere, internationally, locally and regionally. We are hearing so much of passings and so on. It's certainly a serious time that we're living under. But let's move away from COVID right now, and something else that's on my mind. Heard about an incident last week at a beach where 2 young ladies were harassed, and it's in the paper today. And my thoughts on that, one, I should be able to swim whatever time of day I would like without being harassed, whether it be early morning or late in the evening. I should be able to wear what I want when I want without innuendo coming from male counterparts. I should be able to do all of these things and, more without in the end being blamed for it. Victim blaming shouldn't happen. Don't tell me I'm harassed because it's the time of evening I'm in an area. Don't tell me that I'm wearing a skirt too short and the shirt perhaps plunging a little too low. I should be able to do all of those things. This is the 21st century. It's time for that to stop. So that's me, and I'm going to just leave that there, because what's on your mind, we like for you to share your comments, your thoughts, your concerns, and we hope to get them resolved, because that's what we're about right here on Face It and Fix It. You can share your comments and questions. You can call us on 228-5562 or 228-5563. You can WhatsApp us on 228-5562. or you can share your comments or your questions on Facebook at CBC Barbados. Today we get help in handling intense and sometimes overpowering emotions like fear and anxiety. And we see how we can deal with stress as personal development coach Maria COLLYMORE puts her spin on it. COVID-19 survivor Pamela Jones-GOODRIDGE is going to join us, and she will share her journey and what it's like to live life on the other side. And QFM radio personality Kimberley SKEETE's going to come in and share the challenges and successes of getting the correct message out there. And as I said, we'll open our phone lines for your thoughts and your questions, 228-5562, 228-5563. That's all happening on this morning's Face It and Fix It. When we come back, Maria COLLYMORE joins us. Maria COLLYMORE is a personal development coach, and Maria also is from within the medical fraternity in terms of nursing many years ago. As a matter of fact, that's how we first connected. And so she is certainly quite able to join this discussion. Maria, good morning. Long time no see or hear.
Good morning.
Good to see you. These are times which are, I don't know, there are times where people are facing many challenges. And one of the challenges is that of, I think, mental health. And this is healthy mental health. Because it's being bombarded with so much information sometimes that can plunge one into anxiety, into depression, into fear, if not managed carefully. And this is what I think we need to find out, how to manage it carefully, how to manage it well.
One of the things that I first want to do is give people an example. Now, we walk around with a ton of stress, and what you want to do, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Sorry. I can hear you.
Okay, yes, I can hear you.
We walk around with a ton of stress, and we haven't been managing it. We just carry it as though we think it's a part of us. So one of the things we don't do is, in reality, people are very mental about their things. So they think about it first, and what's stressing me? And they first shake it off, literally shake the body off. because it actually affects your whole system. And sometimes you need to turn it off just by shaking. Another good exercise that I find works is if you tilt your head to the side and then look through the corner of your eye, right there, and look up at the sky for a period of time until you feel yourself sigh or breathe, or there's you have a reaction. When you have that reaction, you've released your vagus nerve. Now, my swimmers always give me a hard time when I tell them to do this. This don't matter. Oh, wait, it does work. Yes, it works. So try it. Turn your head on the side and then do the next side. That, first of all, will let go a lot of what you're carrying from a physical place. That's before we even get mental. So those two exercises help tremendously. But we don't do them anymore because we think. But if you think about when a dog has just come from running, or like he's been in a noise or whatever, first thing he does is shake. It's a natural human instinct. And so we've shut off a lot of our human instincts by, our thought of being what is professional, what isn't, or whatever else. And sometimes we don't relax enough. So we're walking around with a lot of stress. So let's first reduce our cortisol. And then let's talk about our thoughts. Sometimes what's driving us crazy more than anything else is our thoughts. So a lot of times in a situation of where you just got bad news, or you're hearing all these things, you may not even recognize how much of it you're absorbing, but you notice that you're feeling anxious, your breathing is off. I always tell people, go to your breath, but then check your thoughts as well. What are you thinking? What is it that's bothering you about this thought? How far are you taking the thought? And is it real? You got to inspect it. We have thoughts. People have fears of all kinds of things, and they're not even practical. So one of the first things I do is voice my thoughts. So for example, I'm a swimming instructor as well. And when I'm out in the blue, which is the deep part that you don't know what I'm doing, I was telling my swimmers, till I got a pair of goggles, I was convinced there was sea creatures up there that would grab me. And it didn't matter, I would still go out because I wanted to beat the fear. And then I got goggles and realized it was just seaweed. But the point was, if you voice it, after you get accustomed to hearing it, it's absolutely ridiculous, you can at least negotiate with it. It's far more palatable. And so that is one of the things that we don't do. We'll have a fear, but because it's so crazy, we don't voice it. But even if you voice it only to yourself, then it allows you to analyze it. Because once we can analyze a thought, then we're in a better place.
Mm-hmm. Thoughts sometimes create realities that are completely different to reality itself. And I have a friend, a turtle, out there in the same waters that you swim, who I swear recognizes me. Yeah, I do, but that's a story for another time. But seriously, and it's a serious thought, because it means that I no longer want to swim out to the boats because I'm thinking that he's lying in wait. And it's the same thing with when you have a fear. It might be an irrational fear, but it's still a fear which is going to prevent you from doing something. And whether it is taking a vaccine, whether it is taking a medication or allowing a medical procedure to be done to you, the fear is real. And so how do you overcome that fear? Because it's a fear that is manifesting itself now in many areas, and not just with COVID and so on, but even opening your door and going out into the community. How does one overcome those kind of fears?
One of the methods that I use is acknowledging it. First thing I do is acknowledge that I'm frightened. I acknowledge, yes, I have a fear of this. And what does that mean? Like, yes, you have the fear, but does it mean you don't have to do it? Does it mean you still don't have things to do? Does it mean, so for example, you mentioned with regard to COVID. So when COVID first came out, I was petrified that I was going to make one of my family members sick because I was the person who did all the in and out of the house. And there came a point where I had to come to grips with the fact that there is no way to clean every surface that I ever touch. There's just no way. And to try to do it would drive me insane. So let it go. A piece of me is going to have to live in faith that the good Lord is still watching and he got me covered to some degree. And so I took that away. I'll do the basics of what I always used to do, but I won't do that extra because it was driving me crazy. And that's what's happening a lot of times. You're so frightened of the outcome, you don't realize that your mind is calling the outcome. You're practically drawing it to you because you're so worried about that one time you could forget and your mask drop, or that one time you could forget and forget to wipe off a surface, that then you make even any infraction then larger than it should be. And you practically feel that you're pulling it to you. So I tell people, watch what they think and watch what they keep manifesting. If you keep worrying about it, you're calling it. Literally. It's the same for anything we do. When people talk about law of attraction or whatever, what this really is about is what you believe you create because it's what you believe. And it's always going to be right for you. If you believe you can drown, then you can go there and do foolishness to drown. If you believe you're a feather, you can be like a feather. If you believe that it can get you every 2 minutes, you carry so much panic and tension, even if your body got it and would normally deflect it, it can't because you have let your mind do. So you have to get to a place of how much of this is too much and how much is just enough. How can I be sensible and then leave the rest to faith? Because otherwise it's making me neurotic, it's making me sick, it's making me worried, it's making me isolated. And as you say, I don't want to leave home. I'm so terrified now. I'm paranoid to leave home, as opposed to a healthy thing of, look, it's going to be around for a while and I have to live with it. How am I going to live with it smartly? How am I going to manage this as best I can without having that constant fear of, oh my God, I'm going to get sick all the time? It's not healthy. That thought alone isn't healthy, which means even when you do, you're not going to believe the best. You're not going to believe, yes, I'm going to be in the 99% or 98% that gets it and lives. You're going to believe, oh, I'm going to be in the 2%. And so that's where the problem comes. That, and please, no, I wasn't calling real figures. I was just saying. But that is one of the things that we have to do. We have to call it, and then we have to drive it to craziness, where you have to let it go to its fullness and recognize, okay, I can't survive if I have to live like that. So how am I going to find my middle ground? Go fully to the end.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to put people into the equation because you're not living alone. You're not isolated. You're surrounded by other individuals who have their own opinions and are feeding you information. How then do you deal with that particular kind of circumstance? We'll deal with that when we come back. If you've just joined us, welcome to Face It and Fix It. We're chatting with personal development coach Maria COLLYMORE, and Maria is taking a look at how we can, get a grip on our own anxiety and our fear as we live within this particular pandemic and all of the challenges that that entails. So, Maria, I was asking you about how do you handle the people equation? There are other people within your home, your curtilage, who you work with, who you interact with. They have their own beliefs, opinions, and agendas. So how do you factor them in?
Okay, so for one, I'm really good at redirectioning conversations. We get it in the news, we get it in the updates, we're getting it. You feel like you're bombarded with it, but you have your views. What you don't want is to get into an argument with people who are just as unsure as you and just looking for company and confirmation. Because it's one of the reasons we talk about it so much. Somebody would like to be right, so somebody else could be wrong. But in reality, we don't know. So guess what? It's like our view on most things. Some will like, some won't. Some will agree, some won't. You just don't talk to those people about the things that you don't think you and them agree on. And if you don't, and people bring it to you, don't participate in the conversation. Whether it be sing a song in your head or whatever, don't get roped into conversations about it. I actually am of the opinion you shouldn't even discuss if you are or are not. If you have an opinion on the vaccine or you have an opinion, say nothing, because what right now it is a bone of contention. And it's creating such judgments, and judgments are prisons. Because remember, we don't know a lot of stuff. We, even in our so-called brilliance, things we used to think we are now learning aren't true. So you want to not be an expert on anything. I don't know enough to have a conversation about anything. I don't know enough to think, because what you don't want is that filtering into you. Yes, lots of people just have points that make you say yes. But then in the saying of yes, in the saying of thinking about them, then you're back into that cycle where you're thinking about it all the time. And what you don't want is for it to consume you. You had a full life before this came along. You still have a full, healthy, and enjoyable life. So do something that relaxes you, that you enjoy. Giggle, spend a lot of time finding things to laugh at, because what you want to do is to bring out those endorphins and enjoy yourself and not be in a state of constant tension and worry and leaving conversations thinking differently of your friend. You used to like them 2 minutes ago, but they have a different opinion of you don't like them. No, just let's not take ourselves through that. Let's not have as much conversation about it. It doesn't help. The decision makers are making the decisions, so it's not something you have to worry about. You just got to do is follow the instructions when they come out. So don't get too caught up in having those conversations, because they don't lead to you feeling better.
Okay.
And so that is generally avoid it.
You said something there. You said singing a song in your head.
When you don't want confrontation with people, but you don't want to leave the space, I like to sing in my head, so that I'm still pleasantly present, but I'm not there. Because what I need to do is to safeguard me. I can feel the anxiety building up. I can feel this conversation is about to get ugly. I want to say this also works on mothers when they're fretting you. I'm just saying that, but yeah, you have to find a way to always take care of you. You are the most important person in your world. You're the one that has to keep you going and everybody else that is attached to you going. So your mental health, your emotional state is the most important thing to you. So don't let anybody come to disturb it. It's very important. You are in control of that, which is what Walter want to talk about is our emotional hygiene. We get hurt in a day, but we don't go back and cleanse it. So then we walk around with that extra weight. I'm hurt over this. I'm hurt over that. You're piling now all of these hurts and fears on top of that. You are in a great place. But unfortunately, the only way for you to get better is to face it when you're dealing with your own stuff. I can't carry your load of mine. So I have to leave yours behind. I literally can't have a conversation with you if it's going to upset me, because then I'm not in my best place. So, but some people don't back down. So, there's some people who, it don't matter that you tell them, I don't want to talk about this. They're still coming. So especially if you're not the confrontational type like me who would just say, oh, please stop. Then make sure you cover you, smile sweetly, and sing your tune.
I
No,
like that. Okay, so some of the things that I am taking with me today, and we have here, good morning, Peta. What your guest is saying is easier said than done. Your thoughts can be so powerful that you can't sleep sometimes. Been there. And then the thoughts just keep coming back in your head. What are her thoughts about using medication to assist? Good point. Prescribed medications, I mean.
okay, because I don't have a medical background, um, I would never. I can only tell you what whatever your doctor says goes, or consult your doctor. But what I can tell you for me, who didn't want to use any assisted drugs or don't like using that. So you talked just now about our thoughts, and I've had huge discussions with people about you can't stop thinking. It's not actually true. You can shut down thought. You're just not accustomed to it. If you hold your breath, the only thing you think about is when you can get your next breath. And actually, while you're holding your breath, you ain't thinking about nothing other than the breath. So even when we say shut down your thoughts, sometimes all I want you to do is sustain it now. You will get thoughts that are about your past or your future. And you can't fix none of them in moments. You have to keep pulling yourself back. I'm not saying it's easy. It is not. It's practice work. But if I catch myself, which we often do, we're either worried about what's going to happen in the future, or something I've done in the past. You can't change either two of them. You could change the future by how you think now, but you can't really be sure about what will happen as an outcome. And you definitely can't change your past. You may as well embrace it and move on. Done. Let's move on to the next. Even with our mistakes, we spend a lot of time reliving errors. Oh my goodness, why? It's done. You done make it. Know that you know better. You say, all right, I'm gonna do better next time. Or not. I might not. But what I ain't gonna do is play over in my head 20 times. I've now done it 21 times. No. Don't play in your head. Love it, but don't play in your head. Just acknowledge, okay, this happened to me. You know, it comes back down to we're always trying to suppress emotion, right? So we
Right.
don't want to feel what we want to feel. But the reality is, emotions aren't good or bad, they're just indicators. They're just an indicator of where your thoughts are in relation to your belief system. So
What the
regularly,
what the
you have
viewer is saying is that it's easier said than done, and you're saying it takes practice. How do we practice? Because I'd noticed you'd said redirecting conversations, but what you're also now talking about is redirecting thoughts. Yes. So how do you do this? How so that we can practice it?
so the first thing I do when I catch myself, let's say I'm anxious, right? What is it I'm thinking? Whoa, what thoughts crossing my mind? Because sometimes what you need to understand is, I often tell my students, there are three people up there, you, yourself, and I. And somebody's watching, because you know when you're upset, you'd literally be watching you. So who's doing the you? Who's doing the thoughts? Somebody's doing the thoughts, because you can also tell when you're not feeling well and when you need to think differently. So between you, yourself, and I, you have to pick the one that you trust the most. And you're going to say, well, is that a real thought? Is that necessary? Should I be really thinking like that at this moment? Is that thought helping me? So you have to introspect. You have to ask yourself good questions to get good answers. What we do is ask ourselves really bad questions and then wonder, wow, how did I get here? If you ask yourself how foolish you are, it will answer you. The problem is you're not going to like the answer. Don't ask yourself those kind of questions. So when you catch yourself thinking, um, let's say I'm letting a thought cross my mind. Let's say I'm thinking about myself. And I'm telling myself, oh gosh, Mary, you need to exercise. Don't eat that. You're going to be you're putting on too much weight. And I have to catch myself at some point and go, whoa, whoa, wait. Do I want to be happy or do I want to be right? So guess what? I'm going to eat that because it's on my mind and it's going to make it worse, just depriving myself of it. And then when I'm done, tomorrow I'm going to do better. Or the next moment I'm going to do better. But I'm not going to spend my time punishing myself here and then still eat it and then wonder, why? Don't have those thoughts. Stop doing it to yourself. Acknowledge this is where I'm at. This is my now. Right now I'm hungry. Is that the only thing I have to eat? Yes. Is being hungry better for me or worse? Because being starved for me, I don't know about anybody else, but it makes things worse for me. I eat more junk if I wait till I'm hungry. I can't control what I eat, and the amount is different. When I eat now, in the moment of what I need, just enough, bang, I'm on point. I'll eat just that and it'll stop. But when I keep starving myself because I'm trying to wait for the right meal, I don't ever get the right meal. And then it becomes a problem. Since I have started releasing my stress, a lot of my weight has released itself because I've stopped worrying about it. But you're worrying about it and still you're trying to eat healthy. No, the worry is never going to let any of what you're doing work. Stop worrying about it.
So
Stay where you're now.
if there's one thing then in the minute and the bit that we have left that you would like us to take away from your visit with us here today, what would you like us to hold on to and to take with us?
So, in my minute, stop judging yourself. It is really what causes half of your drama. You think you should be where you're not, and you're never happy with where you are. So, stop judging yourself. Be kind to you. The compassion that you pretend you want to show to everybody else, stop pushing it outward and push it inward. Am I really being kind to me? Is that thought kind to me? Is that idea kind to me? Is that even true about myself, or is that something I let someone tell me and now I somehow believe that that is me? Is it really true? Because if it isn't, then you're not being kind to you. Be kind to you and stop judging you. And most of all, the last thing I want to leave is forgive you. Yes, we all make mistakes, but you know what we don't do? We don't seem to stop and forgive ourselves for what mistakes we have made and move on. It's not something you replay, it's just something you acknowledge. Made a mistake there, keep moving.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you so much. I've got some notes here that shake it off, voice my thoughts, analyze them, what I believe I create, redirect conversations, and sing a song in my head when I just want to smile at people and not really get involved in the conversation. Thank you so much. You stay safe.
I will, and have a wonderful night. Thank you so much, viewers, as well.
Thank you. Okay, coming up next on Face It and Fix It, we chat with COVID-19 survivor Pamela Jones-Goodridge. Pamela Jones-Goodridge is a COVID-19 survivor. And just what does surviving COVID mean? Well, we will find out. But first, let's find out from her as we welcome her to Face It and Fix It. Let's find out from her just how the journey began. Good morning and welcome, Pamela.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Same here.
Can you tell us about the start of your journey? When did you notice that you were unwell or not? What was the journey like?
But the thing is, the journey started quite unusually. It first started a Monday afternoon. I recognized I had a little niggling in my throat. I didn't associate or connect it with COVID at all. Because it didn't feel like a sore throat. It just felt as if I had, like this uncomfortable sensation in my stomach. So I was trying to clear my throat quite a bit, but it wasn't hurting or anything like that. So I continued about my usual activities. The Tuesday I came to work. Actually, that's where I am right now. I came to work the Tuesday. Worked very closely with my my colleagues. On occasion, and you would, just drop the mask onto your chin. And I shared lunch with a colleague that day. And the evening time, I went to boot camp. I have a group of gorgeous young ladies that I work out with. So I joined them at boot camp that evening. And then I went home, nothing out of the norm or nothing out of the usual, something that I do on a regular basis. And same sensation in the throat, just trying to clear my throat. Woke up early hours of the Wednesday morning, feeling cold and chilly, and I covered myself over with a sheet because I was thinking, okay, the fan is directly on me, so that's probably why I'm cold. About 15 minutes later, was feeling very hot, and I tossed off the sheet again, and it was like that for the night. 1 minute I'm cold, 1 minute I'm hot. So when I got up the morning, I decided, I'm not quite, something is off because it just felt like sinus pressure. It's hard to explain, but it's like this pressure I felt behind my eyes, not quite a headache, but like this pressure behind my eyes and in my upper nasal cavity. So I said, hang on, let me take my temperature. Honestly, I don't know why I felt to take my temperature. I decided to take my temperature, but I have a digital temperature. I took my temperature. It read 37.4. And with those digital thermometers, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but once you have a high temperature, it lights up red.
Right.
So it lighted up red and it said 37.4. And I'm like, this is odd. So I said, but let me pause, let me give it half an hour and go and check it again. Checked it again, it was 37.6.
Wow. So rising.
Creeping up now. Checked it again, 37.8. At that time, I decided, no, something is strange is going on here. So I called my two work colleagues and I indicated to them that I think I should go to the doctor and see what's happening with me because I had a very unusual night and I can't figure out what's wrong with me. So I called, I have a friend, a very good friend, he's absolutely brilliant and fantastic. I called him and I explained to him, I said, I explained my symptoms. I told him, I don't know if it's my sinuses acting up. And he goes like, no, Pam, your sinuses wouldn't have you registering such a high temperature. Come on in and see me. Let's see what's going on. So I went to his office and he said, well, the only way we can figure it out is via a process of elimination. It could be dengue, yeah. Could be COVID. Because if take the COVID test. So I took the COVID test and then he gave me a prescription for, to help relieve with the sinus pressure in case it was dengue. He gave me medication so that I could treat it as if it was dengue, just in case. So I left his office and I came back to St. Philip, and because I had a prescription, I stopped and I went into Emerald City, fully masked on. went to the pharmacist, and I told the pharmacist, if I take this medication and it is COVID that I have, right? Will the medication mask the symptoms of the COVID? Because I wanted to make sure that I didn't lull myself into a false hope that it was not for COVID if I started to feel better. So she explained to me that it mimics sinus and flu-like symptoms. The medication itself will help, but it would not mean that I would not test, but that I would not have COVID. So with that in mind, I took the medication. I went and picked up a few items in Emerald City. I believe you me, I don't know why at that time I was thinking maybe I should just.
I was going to ask. Yes, you know.
No, right? Shop and prepare. Yeah, shop and prepare just in case it is COVID. But I just picked up one or two items and I came home. I guess also because I still wasn't feeling well, the pressure behind my eyes was intensifying. So I came home. I remember Brian had told me if it was positive, I would get a phone call. If it was negative, I would get an email, receive an email. So I came home, and as soon as I came home, my let's start observing these protocols just in case. And she, prior to me leaving home in the morning to go to the doctor, both my aunt and my daughter looked at me and asked me, "Why are you going and spending all that money at the doctor for? You don't have COVID. Where do you go to catch COVID? You do the same thing every single day. You've been doing the same thing every day for the past 6 months. Where would you catch COVID?" So when I came back home and I said, well, let's start, I'm going to keep on my mask. I don't want you anywhere near my bed. I'm going to show, going to tell you what I need. If you can't bring it, I'm going to come and get it. But what I need you to do is to make sure that you leave a beet spray in the kitchen or wherever I am going, so that as soon as I'm finished, I can sanitize the area before you or anyone or my aunt enters the room. So I stuck to those precautions the entire day. We moved about with a mask. I came out at some point to get something to eat, and my daughter was in the living room. I didn't go anywhere near her. I kept on my mask, and as I was like a crazy person with this beet spray because I was spraying everything. As soon as I was with the beet spray, and I was spraying, making sure that I got rid of any bacteria, any viral load, anything that I had left on any surface. So I was pretty much sanitizing constantly behind myself. And so I got up about early morning bathroom trip. So about 4:30 a.m. and I checked my phone and I saw it had an email. So I put the phone back down because I remembered Brian had told me, oh, well, if it's positive, they'll give you a call. If it's negative, you get an email. So I saw the email and he immediately went like, oh, okay, I'm negative.
Oh, no.
I put the phone back down. I was going back to sleep and that thought entered my head. You better read that email, Pam. So I put the phone up again, opened up the email, and when I read it, it said, COVID SARS detected. And I was like, oh gosh.
Oh my goodness.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Funny thing is, my first thought wasn't for myself, even though I'm asthmatic and a bad one as well. My first thought was not for myself at all. 4 years ago, my aunt had a, but my aunt also has high blood pressure, and she is overweight. And immediately in my head, I was, if my aunt catches this, if I've given this to my aunt, I've probably just signed her death sentence.
Oh my
And
goodness.
that panicked me. Even my daughter received her first Pfizer vaccine. She was due for the second shot the following week. Now, I wasn't as worried about her as I was about my aunt. I felt that she stood a fighting chance, but my aunt, I was in a state of anxiety about my aunt. I didn't even think about myself. So when I got the news, I jumped up, I turned the lights off, I shouted my aunt, and I said, I just tested positive for everything. You know, just go to, I'm going to stay in my bedroom, start sanitizing everything. Please put on your mask. So my daughter jumped up. She woke up and she was running out. She was running, Mommy, Mommy, what's wrong? I said, don't come in my room. Don't come in my room. Just got my results. It's positive. I need you all to put on your mask. Start sanitizing everything. So I was very concerned about them. And then the penny dropped when my aunt went like, oh my gosh, Hannah, oh my gosh, 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 you're asthmatic.
Then you started to think.
And that I audition as well.
Yes.
I was not thinking about myself all in that moment. So it was by then it was about 5 o'clock. I contacted my two colleagues at work. Well, I called my boyfriend first, my boyfriend Andre first, and I told him, look, I just tested positive. Please, you're going to need to get tested because I had spent my entire, and apart from my aunt and my daughter, he was the other person that I would have been really closely, connected with. So I called him and I told him, and then after I put on the phone from him, and the funny thing is when I called him, he was not stressed, he was not worried, he was calm, he calmed me down, and he goes like, you know what, babe, chances are I have it as well. So you know what, we'll get through it together. He
Wow.
was like, don't worry about it.
Wow.
You'll get through this. Absolutely fantastic man. You know, he's been nothing but supportive from beginning up to now.
Give
I mean, way before that,
thanks.
he was always supportive way before
Yeah.
that. But I mean, a different level at that point.
No, that's sweet.
Yes. So then I called my two work colleagues and I indicated to them, okay, the test was positive. It's positive. So chances are how closely with acting with
Right.
them. And I called one of the young ladies from my boot camp, actually our trainer, Kimberley, and I told her my test came back positive. And you know, the good thing is I must admit I have very supportive friends, Jamela, Kimberly, Kayan. You know, I have these friends who are only calling me at point, and I do appreciate that.
Okay.
But that was how it all played out. And
Okay. Well, we're going to take a quick break right now, and when we come back, we're going to find out the other side. Now, what happens after you test positive? Where did you isolate, and you know, did those symptoms increase? That pressure and the fever and so on. We'll find out after the break. We're chatting with COVID-19 survivor Pamela Jones-Goodridge, and she was just receiving the email about the positive results of her test, and she's just informed her family and her other half, and now her colleagues as well. So what happens next, Pamela? Do you isolate somewhere? Do they say to you, you have to leave home? What happened next?
Well, that's the interesting part, because I immediately after I made my calls to everyone, to all of my primary contacts, I then called Brian, and I indicated to Brian the test came back positive. So he tells me, just sit tight. The Ministry of Health will get in touch with you. So I was like, that's cool, no problem. So I expected to be picked up that day. The thing is, I wasn't collected that day. So I'm home isolating. At that point in time, neither my aunt or my daughter can leave home either. Now, here's the thing about the whole isolation bit that I really want people to understand. Because young people for leaving home. I saw a voice note circulating at some point about a family that left home to go into town to get nighties and such forth. And people are really on people's case for leaving home. Here was my situation. I tested positive. As a result, I am effectively cut off from the world. I can't leave home because I'm now a risk to the rest of society. Mm-hmm. Because my aunt and my daughter or my parents leave home, they have to quarantine. They have to isolate themselves just in case they also have this virus that can potentially infect others. Mm-hmm. My partner, he cannot leave home. My friends that I associate with, my work colleagues, they are also grounded. They cannot leave home. The question for me then is, when people say that you want to bring things for you, who do you call when all of your primaries, when all the persons that you will lean on for assistance are also in the same predicament as you? And I think this is what a lot of people are not understanding. It is all well and good to cry down people, but perhaps the question they should be asking is, how can we help you? How can we help you to stay isolated and stay safe? How can people, they're not asking help. They're just attacking people when they do what they shouldn't do. Now, I ended up staying in my house for 2 days. I was not collected until Saturday, until 3 p.m. with hardly anything to eat and no one to bring anything for me, because everyone was in the same position I myself was in. Wow. It's things like this that people do not consider. Because as I said, when I read the doctor and I filled my prescription, I just picked up a few items. I wasn't thinking at that point in time, what if this test comes back positive for COVID? What am I going to do? Mm-hmm. How am I going to get things that I need? I wasn't thinking along those lines. Furthermore, I was in a state of this. I don't want to say denial, because it's more a state of, was like this out of body feeling, this out of body experience, as if it was happening to somebody else. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So because I was in that frame of mind, I wasn't thinking clearly when I went to the supermarket that I would need to pick up this, that, and the third. I wasn't thinking along those lines at all. Mm-hmm. And because I didn't have anyone that I could have guided me. But all the persons that I had called and told them, well, I'm going to get tested, no one had been contracted COVID, that they could have told me, well, Pam, you need to prepare, you need to get this, you need to get that item. So I didn't have anything to go by. So I was operating in the dark, clueless, so
Right.
to speak.
Goodness.
So I wasn't collected until Saturday. My aunt and my daughter were collected the Friday night around 7 Savannah Hotel. My work colleague, they were was taken to Hilton Hotel, and my partner, he was taken to Savannah Hotel. They were all picked up before I was. So I was in my house with my cat, and at that point in time, I started worrying now, because I'm like, who's going to feed my cats? Who's going to take care of my animals? Because I can't leave I don't know how long I'm going to be there for. No one else is at home. Who's going to... People don't think of what we are literally going through once we get that diagnosis. You know, and I'm there, and I picked up the phone, and I called the COVID hotline at that point, the Friday night, because by now, I got the call from the Ministry of the Health the Friday, and I was told I would be collected by 6 p.m. the Friday evening. The same time I got that call, and all of my contacts, they got their calls as well, and they were told they would be collected the same Friday. And everyone, they were collected, like I said. I was the only one that wasn't collected, and I was packed and ready to be picked up at 6 p.m. So by 11 p.m., and I didn't, by this time I had called my, another friend of mine, and I seem to know quite a few doctors, Dr. Ian Lewis, he's a fantastic friend of mine. I called him, and I was like, okay, I know you haven't. He was like, what? And I also contacted another friend of mine, Claudette Clark, who's a nurse, and I told them what happened. And they're like, okay, sit tight. We're going to come and get you and such will. And I'm like, okay, but I'm sitting tight. No one has gotten here yet. I said, all right, you just relax. They're going to come. They're going to come. So by 11 o'clock, I didn't see anyone. So I picked up the phone and I called the hotline. And a lovely young lady answered. Nice, lovely young lady. Prepared to counsel me. For a couple weeks or months last year, I was also manning this COVID hotline. I was also a member of this hotline, so that I would be assigned a case. And I would be assigned cases, and I would be required to contact persons and do the counseling and such forth. And I thought I was doing such a fantastic job until I became
How you counsel yourself? Did you counsel yourself? Did you use your training?
I know, right? I know, right?
Yeah.
I had to. I had to use my training because I'm a clinical social worker. So when I picked up the phone and I called at 11 o'clock the night, and the lovely young lady answered, prepared to counsel me. And the thing was, I don't need counseling. And I think to me, that's one of the shortfalls of the hotline. I didn't need counseling. I needed to know it was that I was supposed to be collected at 6 p.m. and this is now 11 p.m. in the night, and I'm still at home, and I have not heard or seen anyone.
Right.
No one has gotten back to me since 1 p.m. that afternoon. I would be collected at 6 p.m. This is now 11 p.m. How many hours after 1 p.m. that I'm sitting, bags packed, waiting to be collected, and I have not heard anything. All the numbers, because it showed up in my cell phone, I kept calling it. I was not getting any answer. There was no one at the end. I literally had not a clue what was my next step, what was my next move. Granted, I had not eaten as either. So by now I'm a bit frustrated. So when this lovely young lady answered the phone, trying to counsel me. I was like, and she was saying, well, she could put me in touch with Dr. Sue. And I asked her, can Dr. Sue answer my questions, as in, when can I expect to be collected?
Wow.
And she couldn't. And so my answer to her question was, you cannot help me.
So,
and I put the phone down.
Okay, so the hotline is for counseling purposes. What you really want to know is like, I am so and so. I was told that I was going to be collected at this time. This is what, I'm sitting and waiting. Do you know if I'm still on the schedule? What time now is the collection point?
Correct. Correct.
Wow. Okay, so you are collected. How much
I'm
longer?
collected this Saturday evening at 3 p.m.
Good grief. Okay, so that's the next day afternoon, and then
That's
you
the next.
right, and then you're taken.
So by the Saturday when I got up now, and I had to end up calling one of my aunt's workmates, because my aunt worked in 6 rows. So I called my aunt workmates, Percy and Shane, and I asked them, can you please go to Shafet? And I mean, I don't eat Shafet, but by that time, I was taking a risk. When I say taking a risk, the reason why I don't eat certain foods is because of diet, because my asthma is controlled quite a bit by my diet.
Understood.
So by that time, I got and I told them, I said, can you please go to Shafet, buy me a burger, and drop it off at the gate for me? Because the way how my house is situated, my gate is so far away from my front door. You can safely drop something there for me. So he did buy me a burger. By the Saturday, the site had gone. The pressure behind the eyes, everything was gone. The only thing that I had was a slight cough, and I realized that I did not have a sense of taste or smell.
By this time?
To this day, my smell has not yet returned.
How? Oh my goodness! Really?
And the taste is only. It was so noticeable on Saturday when my partner and we went to Shafet to pick up some meal for my daughter, and he was like, "Oh, that Shafet food have me feeling hungry now." And he was like, I was like, "What about it? Have you feeling hungry?" He said, "You can't smell that." I was like, "No." He's like, "You seriously can't smell that?" I said, "No." And he couldn't understand that I really was.
Yeah.
Smelling. Those are only two. The smell hasn't quite returned, and the taste only partially has returned.
And what about your asthma? It didn't manage to affect that, right?
It did not. It did not. I was lucky, and I put it down to the vaccination. And I would like to make a plug here for people vaccinated. I maintain, if not for that, the AstraZeneca product, I'm not sure. I don't think I would have died, mind you. I would never think so morbidly, but I don't think my time at Black Mangala would have ended so quickly. I think I would have had serious problems with my serious respiratory issues. I do believe I probably would have ended up having to get oxygen and such forth, because my asthma is not the best. And so I do believe, and the AstraZeneca is, because I'm tired hearing the argument that the vaccine does not stop you from catching COVID. I'm tired hearing the argument that the vaccine is people are still dying that are vaccinated. I am tired hearing those arguments. And the reason why I'm tired hearing that is because the statistics show that the overwhelming majority of persons who are unvaccinated, the statistics show that the overwhelming majority of persons who are succumbing to COVID are the unvaccinated. And this is not just in Barbados, this is worldwide.
Yes. Now you had said that your daughter, not crossing you, just my curiosity, but your daughter, you said, had just had her first.
Yes.
So how was she? Was she all right? Your spraying and the house down and everything, they were fine?
They were fine. Every single one of my primary contacts, every last one, tested negative.
Excellent.
On 2 tests.
And that was all of your spraying and making sure you stayed away and
right. And that is why I said the one person I was concerned would have tested positive was my boyfriend, because I was not taking those precautions, because when I was with him, I did not have any symptoms in my body. I started the symptoms from the Monday afternoon, and as I said, I didn't recognize it as a symptom. The full-fledged symptoms came on the Wednesday morning. So from the time I started experiencing the symptoms at home, I started taking the precautions. But when I was with my boyfriend for the weekend, I didn't take those precautions. So he was the one person I felt, and he himself felt, he would have.
That is fascinating, though. You should write this down, so that you don't.
Well, I did record a video. Record a video, and it ended up being circulated on social media platforms, because I wanted to let people see the power of the vaccine. And that's why I said I'm tired of hearing people saying the vaccine, people COVID, but the vaccine, it never said you can't catch COVID.
No.
And it never said a vaccine alone is your only form of protection. Recovery was so thick. The reason why I did not have any severe symptoms despite having an underlying condition was due to three main things. The vaccine, I'm a healthy eater. Well, four main things. I'm a healthy eater. I take my vitamins. I believe in multivitamins and cod liver oil capsules and stuff like that. So I take my vitamins. And then the fourth thing, I work out. I'm very fit. I'm very active. I do cardio. And I believe it's a combination of those four things.
Right.
That made it so easy for me to overcome this. I wouldn't tell any, but to be honest with people, as serious as COVID is, it didn't, for me, my experience of it, the flu a couple years ago.
Wow. Pamela, thank you so much.
When I had the flu a couple years ago.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I hope that, from your mouth to people's ears, you shared quite a bit in there that I think people can take with them. The vaccines aside, nutrition, the fact that you work out, and also that in a sense you self-soothed, but that's your background in clinical psychology. You were able to calm yourself and not be, overly anxious. And I'm happy that, the only thing right now is your sense of smell. I hope it comes back soon. But thank you thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm glad that all your primaries are well as well. So All the
too.
best. Stay safe, hon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. More on Face It and Fix It as we find out from one of our colleagues, just how she gets the positive information out there. I'm talking about none other than Kimberley Skeete of Q100 FM when we come back. As we go more into this, pandemic, you're learning about the experiences of so many people, and each one has a different tale to tell. And, one of the, I think, people within the pandemic that sometimes might get pushed to one side is the person from the media, because the information that is generated, the positive and correct information that is generated and shared, there are individuals behind that who are actually researching it and shaping it and making sure that it is accurate. And they're doing this on a daily basis. And that's why we sort of wanted to do this particular spot on Face It and Fix It, to find out just how do they receive the information, disseminate it, and then share it. So I say good morning to our friend Kimberley Skeete. It's nice to see you, Kimmy.
Good morning, Peta. Or should I say Peta?
Peta! Anyway, no, it's it's interesting when you think of how early you get up, and then you also do their talk show, Talk Your Talk, and so on. So talk to me about, for you, your pandemic journey. How do you gather the information? How do you internalize it and analyze it and then get it out there?
Well, let me start by saying no man is an island. As you know, in any broadcast, the production element has a lot of cogs that keeps the wheels turning. So a lot of persons within the archives, the research department, sometimes you get a helping hand from your colleagues in terms of being able to collate the information. Of course, we take the said information from the Government Information Service, but a lot of it, if it's just presented as a public service announcement, will oftentimes go overhead. So, for example, with Let's Talk About It, a lot of the information as to the vaccination sites, as they do, the lists do broaden, the times change and adjust. We try to keep persons informed with regard to the locations, the times, etc. And then there's the testing sites, because there are persons out there who still need to know their status before they actually go out to get a vaccination. And this might be due to the fact that he or she might felt that they've been exposed in some form or fashion. So taking all of those things into consideration, we try to work together in terms of getting the information out. I think the more important part of the dissemination of the information is dealing with the fear factors. Let's be real. COVID has made us all fearful in some form or fashion. Even those who say, man, if I get it, I get it. I am bothered. Those who throw their hands up in the air have passed that threshold where the fear has gotten to them, where there is a certain level of give up. But I want to say this, give up is not where we need to be at, but having a better understanding of how the actual virus has been reacting in various parts of the world, and particularly here. And we see a similar pattern. We see the pattern that those who are vaccinated have a certain amount of coverage, a certain amount of protection. We understand that it acts as a damper and not that it is a cure-all. It is not the be-all, end-all. But we recognize the level of risk, unfortunately, that happens in a situation where you are unvaccinated, there are comorbidities. Sometimes you don't even know what your comorbidities are, because you could be living your life pretty quote unquote normal as you see it. But then it starts to rear its ugly head should this happen.
Right. And you are a mom of two little, I want to say little girls, but I know they're growing so fast these days. How do you...
One is not so little.
Not so little anymore, no. But how do you as a mother then take all of this information, and let's face it, you're going to have listeners to your morning show who will be of varying ages. So how do you suit the information to the audience, if that makes sense?
We have to meet people where they are. And that's what I've been taught in life, and that's a rule book for life for me, and not a broadcasting rule. So if you come to me and you say, look, I'm frightened of this vaccine. I hear enough things about it. I still frightened for COVID. I want to know where the vaccination stations are. I start at the beginning. I can't start at the end, which is where the sites are. I have to start at the beginning where the fear is. We have to talk a little bit about, what are the things that you are most afraid about? The other things that come into question. Do you live alone? Is there someone to look after you? Now, even if, as I always say, no man is an island, you still have to meet the public at some point in time, even if it's just to change your pension check. So this is where I find that getting to understand one's fears and trying to allay those fears by putting more information out there, making it simpler, not talking about comorbidities and all those things. You got hypertension? Are you diabetic? How often do you have to see a doctor? What are some of the things that ailing you now? These are the things that probably, you discuss with the listener. And having said that, then I'm no doctor, so my next point of reference would be sit down and talk to your doctor about the things that bother you most regarding the vaccine. Tell them what are the things that you are afraid will affect your health should you take this vaccine if you're on medication. All of these things are varying topics that came up via WhatsApp from listeners and via callers on the program.
Yeah, and with the new public advisor, he really and truthfully is stressing the importance of getting the information out there,
Exactly.
and the correct information. But what does it do to you, Kimberley, the individual, when you surf through and sift through all of this information?
It can be a brain drain. No lie, it can be a brain drain. Because apart from the fact, there's fiction. And then in between the fact and the fiction, there's the other F, there's fear. Now, It is a fighting uphill battle to greet fear where there is fiction. And the fiction sometimes can be stranger than the truth, but yet it's believable. If you see the things that go on social media, I mean, everyone's a doctor, everyone's a pundit, everyone's a scientist. The last buddy that asked what was in a pack of potato chips, made a very valid point. Good morning, Professor Fraser. But nobody asks what's in the pack of potato chips. Nobody asks what exactly are the key ingredients that you put into all beef roti. Nobody asks these questions. But the questions came out from the get-go regarding a vaccination, which to all evidence that has been put out there shows that there is a greater degree of protection having taken the vaccine. Now, when you have to revisit this again and again and again, it can be a bit, it you a little bit. It can sometimes mess with your spirit, but sometimes you have to go back, regroup, refocus, and in addition to that, more importantly, don't push. I know that there are many of us out there that want a change in terms of the vaccination being mandatory. That has been bantered about, has been taken off the table, and people are still arguing about it. And these are the things that again comes to bear where there is fear. But I also want people to understand that taking a vaccination is a personal decision, and therefore fear factors can't play, even though all of the facts is there for you. The fear factor cannot play. So you have to feel comfortable in knowing, well, look, I looked at the odds, I looked at the situation, and I decided to take it. I know of people that still have their question marks, but guess what? They get a call, they got to travel. Guess what? I had to take the vaccine. All of the fears and the questions went through the door because in order to get from point A to point B with whatever developments I need in my life, I will make my decision there.
Okay.
And those are the realities.
Let's talk about it after we come back from the break. We have 100.7 FM Q radio personality Kimberley Skeete here with us this morning on Face It and Fix It. And you can understand, the difficulty sometimes in amassing information, sifting, sorting, and then sharing it with the public. And you have to ensure that it is accurate at all times, because that is part of our mandate, as broadcasters, to inform, to educate, and then there's to entertain. But we also do that. Let's talk about Let's Talk About It, Kimberley. I know that you and Admiral, you don't pull any punches. You are as honest, as the day is long, and you certainly correct individuals when you perceive that they might not be getting the correct information. Talk to me about that with your ear on the ground. What is the focus now when you talk to your listeners?
Not only from listeners, but within the community, a lot of what you are hearing it's almost a divide. Let's look at the statistic as it is right now. We have at least about 40% that's been vaccinated thus far. So you still have a certain amount of individuals who are sitting on the fence. I don't think we have such a large portion of anti-vaxxers, but Barbadians generally like to wait and see a lot of things. They like to wait and see.
I usually like to ask, what are you waiting for, COVID-22?
Listen, I don't know. Because really and truly, I would like very much to go back to life where people can see my Colgate smile, no advertising intended. So when I sit down and I look at the fact that we have persons who are still sitting on the fence, but if they're placed in a position where, as I said, it's a must, travel happens suddenly, you have to take the vaccine, they'll get it. Then there are those who genuinely have a bit of a tussle between their medication regimen because they have other comorbidities, and even though it is emphasized that persons with comorbidities should get vaccinated, especially, what causes the great amount of fear is the questions of any medical, I don't want to say setbacks, but any side effects that might follow from taking the vaccine. Again, I like to say this, it's my disclaimer, I'm no medical doctor, so usually if you have that kind of fear or that kind of concern, I usually suggest speak with your doctor, but don't make the decision based upon just what you've heard being bantered about.
Yeah, I must admit my tolerance level for the waiters is I understand the hesitant. Those I can understand. Don't tell me you're waiting. You're waiting to see, what the rest of us who've been vaccinated, something happens to. I have no tolerance level there. So if people took offense at my COVID-22, tough. So what I would like to find out though is the level of discourse though. Is it as intense as it was at the beginning, or do you find that there's more acceptance now? What are you hearing? I know on my side, when people approach me, it's to do with schools and children going back to face, and the children facing their vaccines and so on. So that's why I want to know, since you have a pulse that you can measure, do you find the...
I think it's become...
Go ahead, sorry.
I think it's become a lot more lax, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Yes, the world must go on, and we still have to live because we're here, but I think that the lax behavior is what contributed a lot to what we're facing now with these high numbers. Now, the crux of the matter is that when you become lax, you don't put all the necessary steps in place. Now, your previous guest to the program, she made a valid point about, continuing to follow all the necessary protocols. Now, if everybody's doing that, and let me just take the word protocols, because that just becomes a sentence now. Protocols observed. It's just simply put, wash your hands. There's soap and water within your vicinity, wash your hands. You enter a building, sanitize. If they don't provide you with any, which they should, then make sure that you do. Now, here's a little thing that I notice in public spaces. You go, some people want you to sign a book after you're done sanitize. Well, I'll tell you this here. The Lord's daughter will sign the book after she sanitizes, and she will go back and sanitize again.
When she leaves.
Because there is always an unguarded moment.
Yeah.
There's always an unguarded moment. So what I am seeing on the ground is, yes, a lot more lax behavior. Sometimes not because people want to be careless, but because, you know, the steps are a bit tedious, and sometimes you can miss a step. Even I can miss a step, but, you know, I try wherever possible to be very, very thorough. So do the necessary things that you need to do, regardless of whether or not you are vaccinated at this point. I will urge, and I will say to anyone out there, once you are putting your questions to your doctor and you've sat down with them for any concerns, get your vaccination. There are too many vaccination sites across the island for anybody to be calling somebody 11 times to find out where the nearest vaccination site is. There are too many. There are too many. But whilst you're at it, for those of us who are vaccinated, don't decide that because you are, you're going to drop your guard. Wear your mask, wash your hands. When you're going out, when you come back in from being on the outside, it is advisable to put those things in the wash. I know it increases your laundry bill and it increases your water bill. I accept that. I am seeing that monthly, but I've had to do it. Now, you mentioned school.
Yes.
We are in a situation where if we don't get this thing under wraps, we are not only affecting our simple way of doing business, but we are affecting our children's education. Nothing beats the face-to-face environment. And all the talk about modern technology placing us in a position where we can learn from our home, there are teachers as well as students who are challenged. And these challenges are seriously putting a great amount of pressure on households. Do you know how many grandparents have been taken out of retirement? My parents included. They've been taken out of retirement because
they're now becoming teachers. Yes.
Teachers.
Yes.
I'm on holiday and I'm in infants A, Monday to Friday.
How's that working out for you? Maths is not the maths that I learned at school many, many moons ago. Truthfully, right now, they borrow and they pay back from and something from some strange areas.
Yes, I must admit that you're right there. You're right there.
Yeah,
but thankfully, I don't have the headache of doing Sadia's class. She handles her own very well, and I'm handling infants A quite good.
Good for you.
Math in infants A is pretty good for me right now.
Good for you.
You know, I don't think I'll be applying to the Ministry of Education for a teacher position, but I ain't doing too bad.
One of the things though that I know was mentioned to me when it comes to broadcasts on TV and also radio is tone. That perhaps the tone of the messaging needs to change. What are your thoughts on that?
In some cases, yes. We have a thing for jingles. Jingles that have a nice beat. And I want to take COVID out of the example here to show you that we had a series of national events happening that were, well, it wasn't just national, but UNCTAD, for example, I'll use that because that's what I'm thinking about, had this beautiful jingle, beautiful. And people are singing it, and some are, you know, onto the beat, and they know it's coming here, and still there wasn't any question or answer as to what it was. In some instances, I'm being honest. And I recognize that with COVID-19, the ability to fully publicize and reach people on a large scale is not the same. But come back to the same push for COVID, come back to the same push for COVID-19 vaccinations. You've been hearing jingles, and the jingles sound really, really good. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
But I ask myself, is that message coming out as clearly as opposed to persons who are telling their stories? For example, we've had special editions on Sundays in particular, repeated during the week as well, where you sat and you chatted with someone. This is put on by the Government Information Service, someone who would have had COVID-19, someone working in the said environment. And to me, those real stories were a lot more effective in making the picture hit home than, just the jingle. I'm not saying jingles don't remind us, but at the end of the day, I think that somehow a little bit more of the reality check needs to play out. We need more of those. And it's not to put fear in people's hearts, but I always say this. I had a caller last month, I believe, who shared a story with us about his parents being in isolation, and one of them being more critical than the next. I do not know what became of the situation past that call, but the words that rang in my heart was, you never understand it until it's at your door. And when he said that is what jerked my emotions, because it was at home, at him. He had to face it. So I want us to think about not just, I'm bothered about me, my number could call anytime. Think about those that you might take with you, or you might not go anywhere, but it might affect them.
Mm-hmm.
And when it hits home, that's where it really hurts.
So how do you then tailor your programming, to suit? How do you, because we are given certain, latitude and freedom and so on, as producers, to find ways and means, to find individuals who can come and share their expertise, to find individuals who can give that positive spin. How do you tailor your programming, to ensure that what you're looking at now happens, that the message is powerful, is received?
Well, one of the things that like I said, has been working is getting those real life stories, sharing them. And in addition to that, because we will all suffer with COVID fatigue, we are all suffering from it at this point. I mean, it's real. One of the things that caller, again, you base a lot of your information based upon the feedback you get from a variety of callers. But one other thing that plays a role is health. Now, good health is a very important factor in terms of dealing with any viral illness, including the said COVID-19. And whilst we've been pushing the whole vaccination process, some of that information that has also been pushed, which is eating health, having a balanced diet, and those kind of things, have somehow gotten lost. So what I try to do, especially after a 2-hour program of Let's Talk About It, of which a good portion of it might lead to the COVID situation, I try to reestablish the things that make up everyday living, that help to promote good health, that help to strike that level of balance. Because COVID clearly is not only affecting our physical health, but it's also affecting our emotional health.
And
So,
our spiritual health
and our
as
spiritual
well.
health as well.
Yes,
Hmm.
which is what we
So,
have
so
been
you
trying to take a look at on TV8 recently
correct,
on Friday
correct.
nights.
Exactly. So when you get callers to call in and share with us, okay, this what we're going to do today. We go in the kitchen, what we put it in this pot. I'm only looking at the things that are going to be promoting good health today. Will you put it in that pot? And yes, I have a way of virtually knocking at doors, and I ask people like my very own Marcel Retta Clark what she got me today. She knows that I love a brown mint and I have reduced my sugar, so therefore she would only give me one or two now instead of a whole pack. So these are the things, I mean, all jokes aside, these are the things that we tend to put into focus. What about exercise? Now, everyone isn't going back to the gym. I'm one of those who I haven't found the courage to go back to the gym. I
I
haven't.
found
But
that
mhm,
swimming helps a lot.
that is wonderful. No,
And
that's
it's,
a good way of getting in
it's
the necessary cardio.
exactly, and it also is very good for your mental health.
Exactly. Now, for
Hmm.
me, I've gotten into the habit of, yeah, walking the dog because the owner doesn't do it. I've gotten into the habit of walking the dog, and that's the exercise for me. Um, and while the children enjoy playing with the dog, I walk the dog. He needs exercise, I get exercise. So those are the things that I get into. I try to make sure that even though we all cheat from time to time and we have our junk food and those kind of things, the cookies, the cakes, and those kind of things, I still try to make sure that uh, the vegetables aren't overcooked, that you don't have a plethora of starch, that you make sure that you have some fruit in there, and the good old fashioned um, um, ginger and turmeric and lemon
Yeah.
mixed down in a tea. It helps to keep your immune levels pretty high, and that's on a general basis. So rather than putting people in a depressing state, I try to encourage, and the spiritual element that you mentioned also comes to bear because there's some of us who haven't been able to get out to church. And yes, you can go to church virtually online, but it is not the same. I can tell you
Oh,
it
I
is
hear
not the
so
same.
many people say that, you know. It's just, you're just not able to see each
Hmm.
other face to face kind of thing.
Exactly.
But there's a reason for that. It's called safety and protection. So
Exactly.
we do it, and then if we continue to do the correct things, we know that, well,
Hmm.
you know, there will come a time when we'll be able to go back into that space in our numbers. What's a final word you'd like to leave with us
Hmm.
today, Kimmy?
I would want for us to stop waiting for COVID to end. As long as you are hearing this, as long as you are seeing this, you are alive. Live. Live carefully. Protect yourself. Wash your hands. Do all your due diligence. Keep your distance. But live. If you don't live, that fatigue is going to continue to trigger. Now, we don't want it triggering at people's hearts. We don't want it affecting your mental health. So live, but live carefully and do your due diligence.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today on Face It and Fix It. It was really nice having you with us, Kimberly. And you're on holiday.
Thank
You're going to
you.
be back out when? Soon?
Uh, in November.
Oh, look at you. Congratulations.
Yes.
Make good use of it. Lots of stuff will be waiting for you when you get back in November.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so
Thank
just think
you.
about that. You're welcome. You know, you can count on me to share the chair every time. So
Yes.
you stay well. Thank you for joining us today,
You
hon.
too.
All right, we're going to
Take
take a
care.
quick break and we'll be right back. I'd just like to share some important contact numbers with you. You can perhaps make a note of this. The Ministry of Health and Wellness, their COVID-19 response contact numbers. They're encouraging the public to take note of these numbers. Residents should also familiarize themselves with the purpose and function of each number. The COVID-19 hotline 5364500 is for queries on testing, travel protocol, general COVID-19 questions. That's 5364500. Then there's the COVID-19 monitoring unit, which is 5363865. And that is for breaches in protocols, breaches in emergency directives, breaches in isolation and quarantine, advice on cleaning and sanitizing of the space after a COVID-19 case, assistance in implementing protocols, education for management and staff, and general COVID-19 complaints. That's 5363865. Then there's the COVID-19 vaccine hotline. That's 5368222. And that's for queries on vaccine certificates and queries on vaccine administration. And the COVID-19 call center for home quarantine and home isolation is 5361800 for queries from persons in home quarantine or home isolation. So those are some important contact numbers for you to note, and please note that each of them has its own specific area and purpose. So don't call the monitoring unit about testing and so on. No, you're looking for breaching protocols and that sort of thing. So we had an interesting discussion today, and just wanted to backtrack a little bit about some of the things certainly that I learned, you know, and I will certainly take with me today. When looking at fear and anxiety, there's an interesting thought that, you know, sometimes what you believe and so on, you can make manifest. Well, one of the things that our personal development coach today was saying, you know, sit back, take a breath, and wonder, you know, why am I thinking the things I'm thinking? And how can I change that thinking, redirecting your thoughts. When you're talking to people, you know, and perhaps the conversation isn't going the way that you'd like it to be, perhaps you could redirect the conversation. If you find that that doesn't work, then you can listen, but you can hum a tune in your head. I thought that was quite cute. Also, looking at, you know, shaking off, just finding ways to make yourself feel a lot better. That was definitely just shaking it off and working on that. And that's something that we've been trying to touch on, I think, a through link on many of the programs here on TVA recently. You know, the whole idea of mental wellness. It's just as important as physical wellness and spiritual wellness. So that's something for us to think about. And then we had an opportunity to chat with Pamela JONES-GOODRIDGE, and Pamela was she is a COVID-19 survivor. And interesting things coming out of that particular chat, which perhaps we should really and truthfully take note of when you're calling the hotline to be counseled. And she really and truthfully did not want counseling at that point. She wanted directing. What was she supposed to do next? who should she contact? And those are things I hope that our health officials and so on are making note of. That yes, there may be people who are saying things on social media, but what they are saying sometimes has value, and perhaps, you know, a few things need tweaking and changing. And then just to see how the media does what it does, Kimberley Skeete joining us and filling us in there. The dissemination of information is very important, and it's also the where. Where do we get our information from? And then the information that we share with you. And one of the things that we hope that you do as well when you are researching is to take a look at Barbados Government Information Service. They've got interesting information, up-to-date information coming out all of the time. As a matter of fact, you should be able to find out where the testing sites and vaccination sites are on a daily basis. Definitely the vaccination sites, they do it daily, and they also let you know where the pop-up sites are going to be. So if you're interested in that information, it is always on the Government Information Service website. And then we as well let you know through our promotions and so on where you can go to get tested and where you can go to get vaccinated. And so therefore, I'd just like to remind you that we're going to be with you again on Thursday. And on Thursday is going to be an interesting discussion. So I would advise you to stick a pin and put it down in your diary, because we're going to be chatting with Dr. Natasha Sobers-Granum, and she's a public health lecturer at the University of the West Indies. She's an epidemiologist, and we're going to find out from her, you know, just what these numbers are. She has been the one who has been warning in the early stages of Delta that it could grow to 500 cases a day. Look out for more cases, she's saying. And so she's going to join us, but also she's going to help us take a look at those charts and graphs which are going around social media. How do we not listen to the couch medics, but that we listen to, you know, the real doctors who can tell us how to read those charts, to read those graphs. You can take a look sometimes at them with the arrow going pretty high, and this is where Barbados is, and we're more than this person in the world, and blah, blah. What are the correct statistics so that we don't frighten ourselves, you know? What exactly do those charts mean? What do those graphs mean? So Dr. Natasha Sobers-Granum is going to be joining us, and you can participate. You can call with your comments, your concerns, your questions, and the numbers will remain the same, 228-5562, 228-5563. And we also will have on Face It and Fix It on Thursday Dr. Natalie Graves. Now, Dr. Graves was quite vocal during the recent town halls, but Dr. Graves is also a specialist in palliative care. And palliative care is that care where, you know, once a person has a particular condition and they're not going to recover from it, it's the care until the end, and a very specialized field. And how is that particular branch of medicine doing right now when it comes to COVID-19 and the care that needs to be given to some of the COVID-19 patients, and particularly to those who are surviving but with long COVID. We've been hearing about this long COVID. So Dr. Natalie Graves is going to be joining us on Thursday, and Joyanne hopefully will be much better, and she'll be back then to keep you company. But just letting you know all that's happening on Face It and Fix It, where we certainly hope that you will raise your concerns and that we will be able to fix them. So So thank you for joining me today. Please stay safe and stay well.